Wrestling Sheet Radio. I'm your host, ProWrestlingSheet.com editor-in-chief Ryan Satin, here with my co-hosts, Jamie Iovine.
Hello, dear listener. It's my Orson Welles voice.
That was really good. I liked it. And Elijah Bates.
Hey, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today. And sorry, you were supposed to introduce the show.
Oh, no, you can.
I was going to go on a long tangent.
Go ahead.
Hey, everyone. I actually don't have anything to say.
This is like it's like those weird once in a while TV episodes where they just skip the intro for some reason.
Yeah. It's like whenever you're watching The Office and it's one of those ones where it's like, just like it starts immediately.
Or the episode of The Simpsons where Bart gets hit by a car doesn't have the intro.
Really?
Yeah, it's weird. It's like the credits are during like Bart skateboarding, which really weirds me out.
Yeah. I don't like that.
I thought you were just doing like a little aside. And I was just kind of interested to see where you were going with it.
Hey, everyone. That's me 10 years ago. Well, I sure learned a lot since then.
Hey, guys. Elijah Bates here. You may remember me from
What if I just went on a long tangent and that was the show? It's like that Terrence.
Honestly, that would have been so good.
It's like I just started talking about the cult I joined.
Hey,
it just became Eli's TED Talk, and we just get enthralled by it.
If it's good, why not?
Right? I would have just rolled with it. He honestly looked like he had a purpose there.
I had nowhere to go.
You had no purpose.
Sorry, everyone. I'll just go.
And you know what? I hope that all of you who watch or listen to this also listen to the Raw and Smackdown recaps, because I forgot to mention this on the shows this week. But I'm going to be on vacation next week, so there's not going to be new episodes. There will be.
So nothing will happen in wrestling news.
What? Yeah.
Nothing. Everybody got to just chill.
What day do I get back? I'm back on Thursday of next week, so we can probably still do the show if you guys want.
Let's play it by ear.
Okay,
because I feel like after that you're going to be like, I need to go to the bathroom for about 2 hours.
Well, I have to be back in the office on Thursday, so
well,
we'll see. Probably, I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. Let's kick into what I think is probably the biggest story of the week, and it's something that's already been bubbling for a long time, but now that it's
reached a crescendo.
Yeah, well said, Jamie. And that is that AEW's TV deal is reportedly, quote unquote, virtually done. The Wrap reported today that current plans call for select members of the press to make the announcement 1 hour ahead of next week's Warner Media Upfront event. Warner Media is what used to be known as Turner, but it's TBS, TNT, and according to the Wrap, it's going to be on TNT in the fall, which is basically the same time that WWE SmackDown moves to Fox.
Wow.
So things are happening. Things are starting to heat up. The fact that it's going to be involved with the upfronts, because the story from the Wrap says that Tony Khan and a group of wrestlers are expected to be in attendance at the pitch to media buyers, and the event is taking place at Madison Square Garden. So those two things are big deals. First, that AEW is already making announcements in Madison Square Garden year one, where that's Vince territory.
Yeah,
he doesn't like people infringing on his New York territory for some reason. He's old school in that regard.
They've been going Barclays Center for so long and everything, neglecting the Garden.
Yeah, but once they neglected the Garden for WrestleMania this year, when ROH announced the show there, and AAA is doing a show there too. But not long after that is when we did the story on the site about the touring schedule for 2019 and part of 2020. And in the touring schedule, it showed that
the AEW touring schedule.
No. The WWE touring schedule.
Oh, okay.
It comes out every year in this lawsuit they have to file, and they put in basically all their touring dates that they can announce, and in it said that they're going back to the Garden for Raw and Smackdown tapings, which they haven't done in a long time. So clearly the message was delivered by the Garden being like, okay, you don't want to come here, we're just going to start using other wrestling companies, and they were like, oh no, we're sorry.
Yeah.
So
it does feel a little like WWE feels so synonymous with the Garden and everything like that. The concept of somebody else being there does seem like a little crazy, but.
I was listening to JR's podcast today, and it's that new Grilling JR podcast with Conrad, and they're talking about the curtain call. I haven't finished it yet, but Jim was talking a little bit about, the Garden and what it means to Vince, and how he used to take his kids there, and he was younger when he was there, and it's where his father made a name for the company, and so it holds a special place to his family. He feels like, and it's obviously it's a big market. It's one of the most famous arenas in the world, but still, I think it's also a little bit of hey, my family helped build this place or whatever. Bruno helped build this place type thing, and so I think that's really why he gets a little a little offended when it comes to the Garden, I feel like.
Yeah.
So that number one. And the other thing is the fact that they're going to be at this pitch to media buyers. I think that, for a long time, the thing said is that it's always kind of like, oh, well, advertisers aren't going to be friendly to wrestling. Advertisers aren't going to care about wrestling. It's wrestling. It's bottom of the barrel. But I think that, over time, people have started to learn that wrestling fans love to spend money more than most entertainment mediums. So I think that the fact that Warner Media is going to be talking about it at the upfronts where media buyers are, I think that speaks volumes to what they think about where they, what they think of AEW, I would imagine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's even a as you know, like a big part of my life and making money is through retail, and it's something I continuously stress, even at my own company, a network, that this is a very, because we're looking for fan bases. We're looking at and there are the consistency of the WWE fan, not just WWE fan base, but a wrestling fan base in general, is so vast. Like they're dedicated. They'll buy anything with the slightest variation. John Cena, going back to the John Cena days, he put a shirt out every month. Yeah. It was like what it and some of them weren't that different. There were different. Certainly, some were huge design changes, but some of them were just different shades of orange or blue, and they'll still eat it up. And if you look at any other fan base, I know a lot for people who love Metallica. They love Metallica, which is ironic because they had the whole Napster thing. But they wouldn't even want to buy a Metallica T-shirt because it's too uniform. Yeah, But that doesn't apply to WWE. They'll buy ad nauseum whatever it is.
I also think not only that, just TV people in general. There's not a lot of TV shows where the fan base is like, we have to get every piece of merchandise for this. There are people who, you watch it and you're like, oh, I want this, or you'll see a fun little thing, you'll get it for your cousin or your dad or something like that. But there's not there's ones out there like a Star Trek,
Star Wars,
but is there Star Wars? Well, I guess the Clone Wars. Yeah. Sorry.
What are you talking about?
Well, TV shows I was talking about, where TV shows. There's not a lot of
fan bases. In general.
No, just TV shows that are out there where people have to consume all the merchandise. I feel like WWE is one of the few things out there. And I shouldn't say sports. The other actual sports brands are the same way. They're pumping out so much merch that people are buying. The fan base.
I've only really started to get to know the Game of Thrones fan base in terms of how much they consume stuff. When we were in talks. The talks have stopped that because of just the timing didn't line up. We're going to do it was going to be a Game of Thrones makeup drop. And it was, at first you're like, Game of Thrones.
Why?
That is what I didn't want to be rude. That was what I was thinking in my head.
Yeah, and at first you're like, what? But then apparently, it was something that the woman's space in Game of Thrones is much bigger than one would initially think.
A lot of dongs in that show.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a lot of powerful female characters too.
True.
Yes.
But the first couple seasons were real dong heavy.
They were,
and
they backed up on it a little bit, but the first few seasons, you don't watch that show, right?
No, but I did see the first season. I did watch the entirety of the first season. The only reason I trailed off of Game of Thrones was because I'm squeamish for things such as doesn't happen every episode, but children being brutally murdered, rape, stuff like that.
There's both of those.
It's a lot of that in there.
And sometimes both at the same time.
Yeah, and I understand it's for the storytelling purposes, and I don't knock the show for doing it whatsoever. I get why it's the biggest show in the world. I get it. The acting is great. The storytelling is phenomenal. Because I do read after every season. I do read a wrap up because I just need to be present in all things pop culture for my company.
Yeah.
And I get it. I was like, this is an engaging story. I understand it. The acting is incredible, and I see clips of it. But it's just when I remember the episode that turned me off was either the second or third season when the little girl gets burned alive.
That's a brutal.
I was like,
Stannis
Baratheon's daughter.
Yeah.
That guy was here in the office today, Sir Davos.
Yeah.
He was here in the office, and I was like, well,
because I had already seen a rape scene.
I haven't taken a picture with anyone here at Collider yet, but that
one because I had already seen a rape scene, and that was something that almost turned me off of Sons of Anarchy as well. And I was like, all right, I usually there's only one. You know,
Yeah.
they'll knock it out. No, it's a touchy subject, and then they'll back off. And
That
then,
was an intense scene. I can understand with that one. That was an intense one.
And then that was just a whole other variation of like, I don't want to
You know what's
see
crazy
this.
with Game of Thrones? It kind of got to the point in the season now where it's just like,
And then
just
I
a
read
beheading?
these,
Really?
and then I read, and then I read these recaps, and I'm like, oh my god, it gets 100 times worse.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't get any better.
I will say, in terms of child death, I feel like enough time has passed to talk about it, right?
yeah.
Hey, if the Russos were able to lift the spoiler ban on Avengers, then
Well, that
I
was
think,
2 weeks later, but still, Game of
if you're
Thrones
gonna
is on
talk
Sunday.
about, you're gonna talk about I thought you were gonna talk about like earlier seasons.
No,
like
I was
did.
talking Game of Thrones on the last episode. If you really care, skip like a minute or so ahead.
You did pretty much post.
Yeah, because if you really cared about Game of Thrones that much, you should have watched it by now.
If you are a Game of Thrones fan and you haven't watched 2 episodes back, like, what are you doing?
Right?
And I think
Like,
you
are
just
you on a-
explaining it as giving people plenty of time.
Oh yeah, it is 2 weeks ago, right? The Battle of Winterfell.
Yeah.
Oh, spoilers are okay. Sorry, I forgot it was 2 weeks
You're
ago.
talking about the
Yeah,
little
there's
girl.
been
The little girl,
There's
that
been
little
giant-
girl's
there's been-
with the giant, her exit with that. That was maybe one of the coolest exits of a character in the entire show history.
Yeah, it was really pretty. That giant is going to scare me for life. I remember I was like, he's going to bite her head off.
This little girl, like who's like a
I know,
badass.
I
Queen.
read
You
about
see
that, yeah.
Oh, dude, that was so
I read
badass.
about all the deaths, and I know people are gonna hate me. Like, you just read about the episodes, you don't watch them.
Hey, you know what though?
And
Like, sometimes
I'm
That's
sorry.
actually better that you read about him instead of just being completely oblivious to
Because
it.
I appreciate the story. I think it's good. It's just like I'm squeamish to some things.
This is like me and Gino Hernandez the past 24 hours, where I'm like,
You don't know who Gino Hernandez is?
Which, by the way,
Gino
Ryan, I'm
Hernandez.
glad you brought that up because I was hoping I could say this.
Okay.
Evan, one of the producers on the show. No, he's on your side.
Thank
He
you.
said I quote, he said he's a reporter, not a historian. And I just say, to be on Ryan's, usually when people rally to Ryan, and I mean not rally to him, get on his case about shit, I think it's comical because sometimes I agree with people.
even
but-
the other day, I asked Jamie before I posted, like, you think people will be talk a lot of shit if I post this? And he goes, whatever, it's not that big of a deal. And then I post it, and Jamie was one of the first people to talk shit to me about
because,
it.
well, first off, you didn't give the full context.
I'll
of
get
this.
to that later.
But anyway, he says, but yes, he's on your side. He thinks that a lot of your flack was unjust.
It's honestly, it's the guys, the Observer, not like all of them, but the people at the Observer, they're just a different type of wrestling fan than me. Like they have, and it's okay. Like I don't hold any ill will for them for being hardcore and wanting to watch AJPW and every single wrestling company in the world. Like that's great. That's awesome that fans are like that. It's just, I'll be honest, like I only have limited time in the day, and I have to do so much for the website, and just in life, real fast, and just in life, sometimes like. I also maintain relationship with women and stuff, and like my girlfriend and like friends and stuff, and have other interests like movies and video games. So sometimes like I've been dealing with wrestling stuff all day. I want to do something that's not wrestling related. Also, I watch so much classic wrestling before I go to bed. I knew I'd heard the name Gino Hernandez, and I was
No,
I
but
just
it's not
wasn't
like
feeling the whole story.
Gino Hernandez has like this long, illustrious like history in the wrestling
No, he
industry.
got
It's-
killed before it happened.
To
That's the
blip
story.
it, he's like an asterisk in the career of other wrestlers for the most part because he never got a chance to really fulfill his destiny in the squared circle.
Like my co-host Roca, he's older than me and older than all of us here. No, he'll say it himself. And he's watched wrestling like his whole life. He loaders, and he was like, "No, I never really heard of Gino Hernandez. Like I just know he's a guy who wrestled and died."
Like literally, he's a guy. Like I mean, in regard, like I have not really seen much footage of him. Which should say a lot because I know a lot about the history of wrestling, but he's like a footnote in other people's careers. Like he did have his own career, but it's just like
he seems similar to Magnum TA to me, where it's like one of those people that like everyone said this would have
This could have
been
been
one of
great,
the greats if he hadn't had his
Also,
career cut short.
Real quick. What an original name, Magnum TA. I'm sorry, but I've always kind of looked at situations like that's such a WCW, and I know it's before WCW. It was like that's such a WCW knockoff name of something that's already popular.
I'm just gonna say this is the statement I have on this whole in terms of whether it be this, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, Harry Potter. I don't give a shit. Whatever fandom, there isn't an entry level exam that you need to take to be a fan. There's not. I'm sorry, there's not.
Also, you don't even need to be a fan. You shouldn't require other people to be a fan or be as knowledgeable about you something to appreciate it yourself. Like there's people all the time who's like, can you believe that I've never seen a Star Wars movie before? It's like, I don't care.
I do.
But people would be like, I've never seen a Lord of the Ring, and I'm like, good for you.
I saw it so much with the Avengers Endgame. It was like, oh, am I the only one who doesn't care about Endgame? It's like, great, congratulations.
Who cares?
Cool,
like,
good.
no, but congratulations on your life. Like, I don't care. It's just like, if you don't like Star Wars, great. I love it. And that's all that matters to me.
No, totally. And look at like the journalist versus historian thing. It's like sometimes people confuse me for Dave Meltzer. Like I'm not basing my career around what Dave Meltzer did. Like I'm a very different person.
Was on the Hugh Donahue show. Like that's the amount of history that he has. Donahue went off the air 20 some odd years ago.
Yes. Yes, he's been doing it for a long time. Like I get it.
And hey, the reason Dave knows about a lot of this stuff is because he was alive to be there and see it, and was a reporter during it.
I'm
sure 20 years from now you'll be just as versed in this shit. I guarantee it. Like you'll be like,
be acting all high and mighty to the up and coming reporter underneath
John
me.
Cena returned to WrestleMania 36.
I would also offer
you don't remember when CM Punk walked out with the title?
Hey, I would
free
also
advice.
say,
You should go watch it.
I would claim that the vast majority of the people that attacked you about Gino Hernandez never consumed content with Gino Hernandez. They're probably just like, is that a bandwagon I can jump on to rag on this guy? I'm jumping on it.
Well, of course, it didn't happen until Meltzer quote tweeted me and was like, free advice, don't dig yourself a deeper hole. And then all his little minions were like, no. They all came rushing out of their little cheese holes.
They're like the trolls from Frozen. Wow.
That's what I pictured, kind of.
Yeah.
Like little trolls popping out of holes. Sir Dave! Can we kiss your ass a little bit more?
What were we talking about?
We were talking about the upfronts. So, okay. Wait, also real fast, because we were talking about fandom and you mentioned it. And, you know, if people don't like a certain thing that you do, if that's the case, why are you guys so mad about me liking the idea of that? Because now Endgame spoilers are allowed. Why are you guys so anti me liking that kid being the future Iron Man?
He's not the future Iron Man. I don't care if you like him. The idea that he's going to come in and take over the role of Iron Man is asinine at best.
For those who saw the movie, there was like this that scene at the end where they had the funeral. And they're scrolling past everyone, and there was that one random kid in the back who's one of the last people they showed for some reason. Then it came out, people looking afterwards, it was the kid from Iron Man 3. And I've seen, predictions that they're setting up a future, Young Avengers type movie with some of the people that they've set up in the last couple movies. And so when I mentioned this to Eli, he gets so mad every time I mention the idea. And Jamie, too.
The kid is so out of place in that scene. Hayden Christensen as a Force Ghost would have been more in place in that scene.
But the reason I think that it's a possibility is because he's so out of the place in that scene.
That kid, what's
clearly
his name?
Marvel shoved him in there for a reason.
It was a sign off to Tony Stark. I can't see it as anything else other than that. It's like he helped Tony Stark. This is about celebrating Tony Stark.
But why would they put him right in front of Captain Marvel?
They didn't put him right in front of
Yes,
Captain
they did.
Marvel.
It's like it's going.
No,
through everyone.
they put him in front of Thaddeus Ross. Actually.
No, it's like right.
No, I've seen it 3 times. You've seen it once.
True, fair.
And Thaddeus Ross, is he the future of the Marvel franchise too?
He could be.
Bull. There's no. Like that. I agree that there may be something like a Young Avengers one day.
And
I
don't think it's possible for this guy to be in that movie?
100% no. He's not why would they use him for it? Like, why would they use this guy? Like, the fact that he got to be in the movie at all, great pat on the back. Like, what a phenomenal cameo that you got to have.
All it is an easy scene in the future of Avengers. So you don't need a whole backstory. This guy's like, oh, he was already set up in Iron Man 3. He was at the funeral. Boom. Backstory montage of what he was doing in the time you don't know about him.
He's a main plot point in Iron Man 3. Like, that's what gets me is just like, no. Like, I mean, Tony Stark, in terms of mentorship, had Spider-Man. And that's where it left off. That's where that's the future person who is mentored by Tony Stark. This kid has no purpose in the MCU.
I'm not jumping on this train. You went from Gino to this. I'm not.
Fine, I'll go back to AEW. I'm sorry, I was mad at Eli.
I was so angry at you when we were having that conversation earlier this week. So angry.
And last night I was just texting pictures of that kid to Eli, and he was so mad.
I said some really offensive things too.
Yeah, you did. At the end of it, I had to be like, "Whoa, take a step back."
Yeah,
Eli.
involved like favors under the pier or something like that.
Okay, so back to AEW and the Raps report on this TV deal. The Raps report said that, like I said, the TNT in the fall, but Jim Ross previously stated that the show will be 2 hours long. And I've heard Tony Khan in interviews, I forget which one it was, but he's talked about one of the things that helped them push forward this company was the idea that right now in media there's a thirst for live sports content. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming it's going to be a live show. And that's not inside intel, just kind of from putting the dots together a little bit here. Live every week on TNT. We're all Attitude Era kids here. You got to get a little excited thinking about this.
Yeah, it's like what I was telling my friends earlier today. Like the Monday Night Wars theoretically are back. I don't think it'll be fought the same exact way as it was back in the 90s, but in spirit, TNT versus USA, it's back. It's
that
and Fox. There's like this weird.
Well, the difference maker of
triangle.
If it's the Monday Night Wars, it's Monday.
I don't think they're going to go to Monday.
Well, TNA tried that back in 2010. The problem
I read they're considering Monday.
Where?
Did I not?
No.
Are you sure?
The thing that it's mainly been rumored is Tuesday because they did a trademark for Tuesday Night Dynamite, but then because of and this is coming from a non-sports fan, but I believe NBA is on Tuesdays on TNT.
There's so many question marks in your voice right now.
Or the finals are on Tuesdays.
Here's what I want to know. Why are you squinting when you say it?
There's some basketball-related conflict.
There is a day called Tuesday.
Go sports.
You got that.
There is. I think that I could have sworn I saw you talking about how there was some sort of NBA conflict. I think it's only
games
around.
Do happen on Tuesdays. Yes.
Oh, games do happen on Tuesdays normally.
Well, that's usually when I go to the Laker games.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay. No. Then that would make sense. So then, I think that is the conflict. Is that during basketball season, people are wondering what the deal is because basketball is on Tuesdays. There's some, like I said, there's some kind of basketball related conflict. I'm sorry. Make fun of me for this one, not Gino Hernandez, because this is something.
3 cheers for local sports team.
Yeah, this is something that I probably should have researched a little better on that one.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually just pull up the tweet because I saw it today and I just was doing so many things.
In any event, I don't know. I don't think that people watch TV on the same level to where people would be flipping back and forth if it happened to be on the same day.
So
they can watch it. Well, they can watch it whenever they want.
Yeah.
So yeah. That is what it is. When basketball is in season, I think they're on Tuesday nights. So that's why people are unsure if that's still going to be the case with TNT. Because, obviously NBA at this time is a bigger property for them. They're going to make more money off of that. But however, with the whole TNT TBS thing, I saw people say, well, maybe it's possible that when NBA is on, it'll be on TBS. And when NBA is not around, it'll be on TNT, but that also is confusing for viewers a little bit, I think.
Yeah,
I have seen Wednesday. I've seen speculation that Wednesday is the day they're actually going to land on.
It's really exciting. Obviously, going back to what I was talking about earlier, when TNA tried to do their Monday Night Wars, the difference maker was TNA was just WWE light. It was basically trying to do the same kind of content and everything. The fact that their AEW is pushing for themselves as a complete alternative, not the same type of thing. And especially TNA had Hulk Hogan and stuff like that. It's you're just trying to reproduce the WCW style Monday Night.
Well, if I recall correctly, because I was a TNA fan at the time when they did that, it wasn't just because they were a slight alternative prior to Hulk Hogan coming in.
Yeah.
But when Hulk Hogan came in and it was we're bringing the Monday Night Wars back, brothers. They went and hired all these former WWE guys.
No, they brought the Nasty Boys in.
And they brought Orlando Jordan and RVD, if I recall correctly. And it was they really, at that point, were hey, look at us, we're WWE light type thing.
We're more WWE than WWE is.
Yeah, because prior to that, they had focused more. I remember when TNA first came out, it was articles about Samoa Joe, AJ Styles, Christopher Daniels, and they just kind of got away from that,
Yeah.
And when they first went on Spike, I mean. So then they kind of got away from that. So, I also think it's funny, when you look at the comparisons, I saw someone posted it. I saw this on Twitter. When you look at the comparisons, there is a lot in common between Jeff Jarrett and Cody Rhodes, of like the two people kind of seemingly, Cody Rhodes is kind of one of the people who helped spearhead a lot of this, and Jeff Jarrett obviously started Impact TNA. I think it's kind of funny. They were both like guys that were, people liked a lot, that were the son of famous wrestlers, the son of famous people in the wrestling business that, left WWE on, because they weren't happy, and then went and started their own company. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And they even had the blonde hair, the blonde spiky hair.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, there is a lot of comparisons between them. So I guess it's not that different than Impact. I think the difference is that Impact, it took so many years to get their $1 million backing, and I don't think they ever had like the hottest free agents.
Yeah,
in
there's
wrestling.
there's a lot of hype machine behind AEW that Impact didn't have, and
well, people I think believe that AEW can succeed, and I don't think anybody ever felt that about TNA.
Also, I think with TNA they started at the fairgrounds. Technically, Double or Nothing is the first AEW show, but you can't pretend like All In wasn't technically the first AEW show, And the fact that they were able to, it wasn't an AEW show, but the fact that those guys, their drawing power was able to sell out the building in Chicago like they did so quickly. I mean, TNA never was able to do something like that. No. And that's the real point.
And I think that a lot of there is some similarities in the sense that the initial TNA was stressed a lot of their young, fresh talent, and I think even though the Bucks, Kenny, Chris is the exception to this, but the majority of the people on the AEW roster, Adam Page, Joey Janela, a lot of internet diehard fans know who they are, but this is going to a large, much larger audience now. These guys are all fresh, other than Jericho. He's the only one who anybody would have seen if they were just casual fans like that. And
a few of them had Lucha Underground exposure too, but still not the same level.
That's minimal exposure.
No, totally, not the same level. But I'm just saying, just throwing that out there.
Yeah, absolutely, And I think that there is a sense that there is, I always think that I don't think anybody makes the same exact mistake twice. I think people can make a similar mistake that they could have learned a lot more from the first one. But I do think that people, by and large, because these guys aren't stupid, clearly. They're not idiots. I think that a lot of these guys have read the critics, have seen the past mistakes that have happened, whether it be with WCW or with TNA, or with Global Force Wrestling, whatever the hell. I think that, I'm not saying that this is a sure thing. By no means. I've said it on the show before that the success of this company is not guaranteed, nor is it with any startup. Yeah. And I think that just from the amount of talent that they have and from just all the combined experience from seeing what has worked, what has not worked, it has a better shot than anybody, I think.
I have a question. And this is something that's just been rattling in my brain. And that's okay, so this week we broke the story that AEW signed and Helico, who's a former Lucha Underground star, as well as Jack Evans. Jack Evans, we posted on the site today. They did kind of video announcing they signed together. But all these signings, for the most part, almost every single person that they've announced as signing with AEW, outside of Kenny, Cody, Chris is a small guy too. They're all like small guys. It's all
Jungle Boy.
But just in general, if you look through the roster, Paige is a bigger dude, but
Bastard Pac. He's jacked.
Literally, like pretty much the whole roster is smaller dudes. Do you think that? Because that hasn't been something that's tested, like a wrestling company where all the guys are smaller. Do you think that is something that could hinder them if they don't add a little bit of beef to the roster?
That's a hard question to answer. The main reason I would say is if you notice, even in WWE, they got Braun Strowman, but the era of the massively tall giant, for instance, that seems to have gone away.
If you really think about it on Raw, those are all the giants. That's where they all are, and they're all teaming up.
Even Lars, is being booked as a monster, but Lars isn't a towering giant. He's a monster of a man, but he's not a giant.
He's 5'10", 5'9".
Is he really?
Who?
Lars Sullivan?
I think he's 6'3".
Let's see.
I don't know. I could be wrong, but
He's 6'3".
Oh wow! He looks much shorter.
But
That could be. That's sorry. That's his build height. So that could be.
But the thing
not
is
his
like
actual height.
that we may have gone away from that era, like where like the idea of there being a giant in there is just not something that's a reality anymore. And I don't necessarily know if there's just if we've gone past the age of the giants in humanity or whatever, but like I think that it's less obvious, it'll be less obvious, and I don't think it will hinder them to not have humongous people if everybody is a similar size.
And I'm sorry, I gotta say this because every time it's brought up, this is just me personally, but I think just because of the television, then it was internet, then it was phones and all this shit, being a giant isn't like incredible anymore. It's not. It's like, okay, you're a giant, but we've seen big guys who waddle fuck around the ring and aren't able to do shit. So can you move?
I'm not necessarily talking about giants. I'm more so talking about someone who looks like they could
Bobby
beat you
Lashley.
Up. Yeah, Bobby Lashley, or even like a Luke Harper, or like I'm trying to think of someone who's not just like. I get Luke Harper's really tall.
There's
there's
nobody on there who looks like they're like a bruiser, like a cage fighter. Is
Correct.
What you're saying?
Yeah,
yeah, and you know what? I think that
there's no like big buff dudes,
Yeah,
like
and the roster's filling up. Don't get me wrong, but I think that there's still, like they haven't had show one yet. I think they really let's have them get their feet going. There could be more people coming. Yeah. There could be they could be looking at these big guys. Also, let's think about it. What big bruiser guys are on the indies right now that are really not being signed up by NXT right now?
No, that's a very solid point. I mean, I don't have anything instantly come to mind.
Punishment Martinez is the only big bruiser that I could think of recent. And then Walter got signed. Both of them got signed to NXT.
I mean, I'd have to. There's not
off the top of my head, at least I can't think of anybody. I'm sure there may be, but I can't think of. I mean,
I think people have been conditioned to have faster matches and things of that nature. Though also, I think that just the nature of the beast in terms of actual in-ring work is about agility. It's about movement. It's about being.
I'm sorry. I guess you could say Brody King, but he's
an ROH.
Yeah,
but I just think that people don't require it, and also we lived. Let's take a look at Big Show. Big Show is big, but everybody slammed him. Multiple people got to break the ring with him. There's a lot of special things that have been done with giants to the point now where it's like, what else could you possibly do with a giant that hasn't been done
and
already?
Even big, strong guys. There was a whole era of that shit.
Yeah. And there's also I personally feel like if you look back at let's say the late 80s, early 90s period WWE, everybody was a big jack dude. Do you truly believe that if a big jack dude punched you in the head that you'd just be able to keep going? There's part of me that's I think there's more of a reality that's attached to smaller people hitting each other and being able to keep hitting each other than comparatively to
That is a solid point.
Compared to a massive man punching you in the head and that's not going to knock you out?
I also do think that, in an era where guys like Conor McGregor and John Jones are the biggest MMA fighters or UFC fighters, you go well, I guess small dudes can kick the shit out of people too, and so it's it's more believable.
David and Goliath is an old story, and people are tired of it.
I also feel like, one big guy would be kind of out of place in this roster of smaller guys, too. I also think it was smart for them to partner with AAA and OWE because those guys are going to be even smaller, and it'll kind of make them look bigger essence.
To be fair, who's to say that they haven't signed somebody like that and they're keeping it under wraps? Because that would be a hell of a surprise if all of a sudden a giant came out. That's, you want your giant to be an attraction.
Giant Khali is in the Casino Battle Royal.
No, but it's just I definitely think that
and I don't, just so for the record, I don't mean necessarily giants. Even a Ryback. I know he's injured, and I'm just
I get what you mean.
He's not a giant, but he's just a guy you look at and you're like, that
still
guy
a monster.
Is buff.
He's a monster.
Yeah. That's all.
I know exactly what you mean.
That's all I was really thinking. I did like the new rules for the Casino Battle Royal that they announced this week.
I didn't see those.
Please
tell me. I was going to try to find a fancy word, but I couldn't find one. Just read it and tell me.
Just tell me.
The over the budget battle royal has been changed to the Casino Battle Royale. And it's
because of the movie.
Get it? It's a 21 wrestler over the top battle royale. It starts with 5 men. And 5 new competitors will enter every 3 minutes.
Oh, so as opposed to one person coming every 3 minutes, it's 5 at a time?
Correct.
Huh. How do they not just fight on the way to
Yeah.
the
It's a good question. It's just gonna look like
That
a
would
mosh
be
pit
awesome.
on the way to the
I
ring.
hope at least like there's one thing where there's like a ring around the rosy type of thing.
They're just swinging and running at the same time. I just imagine Joey Janela running and swinging at the because
Him and Glacier just punching each other on the way to the ring.
Yeah, because we know Joey has an incredible run. No offense, Joey. I'm sorry.
And I could be wrong here. I'm pretty sure if I remember, I don't have it in front of me, but I remember correctly, the way it's going to be handled is like they're going to have to pull cards from a deck, and whichever suit, they get a suit. And then those are the groupings.
Yeah. And then the number on the suit, does that have anything to do with it?
No, but then one person is going to get the Joker, and the Joker is number 21.
Ah.
And the winner of the match gets a shot at the AEW title once it's a thing.
That's fun.
Pretty good, right?
You could actually, you could theoretically bet on it if they legitimately, you saw them drawing the cards, because there's no way to actually prove that they are drawing cards. Like,
I feel like they can't do that, because then they're going to give away who's number 21, and clearly 21 will be like someone that'll get a big pop.
Yeah, so never mind.
Right? That would make sense in wrestling, booking wise. In the match, Sonny Kiss, Kip Sabian. No, wait. Oh, no, Kip Sabian's in a different match now. It got changed. So, Sonny Kiss, Brandon Cutler, Ace Romero, Glacier, Brian Pillman Jr., Sunny Days, MJF, and Joey Janela confirmed.
The biggest guy in there so far is Ace.
Yes. I guess there's one big guy in the match. There we go.
That's a different kind of big.
That is a different kind of big.
That's a viscera big.
That is a viscera big.
May he rest in peace.
Did you guys watch Being the Elite this week by any chance?
Yes.
Yes. That whole ransom note thing at the end was so funny.
With the best friends?
With the best friends when they were, you didn't see it? It was like, they did like as if it was cops
pixelated.
where their faces are pixelated, and it's like them coming out and being like, hey, like this is a ransom note, like just know like we're you have to book the best friends in a match besides that stupid battle royal. Like we don't want to be on, they don't want to be on the pre-show. And if you don't do it, we're gonna and then Chuck Taylor goes, we're gonna kill your family. and then Trent goes, no man, like, what are you doing? Like, we're just trying to get them to book us on the match. We're gonna kill their family, dude. And he's like, well, I'm just trying to like hype it up, you know? And he's like, yeah, but that's not gonna get them to change their mind. And then like one of them pushes the other one, and so Chuck Taylor's face goes out of the pixelated thing, so you can clearly see it's him, and he pushed the other one back and his face goes out of it. It was so good. I loved it. It was a good one. I can't, honestly, I'm so hyped. Now that it's like almost here, I'm so hyped for Double or Nothing.
Yeah, I feel like it took forever to get here.
It does feel like it took forever to get here.
It still feels far away to me.
It was only 2 weeks away.
Wow.
I know.
Yeah.
When you and I were talking about it the other day, I was like, I didn't realize it was 16 days away or whatever.
Dang.
I was like, damn, that's crazy.
It's gonna be a crazy. It's gonna be a crazy weekend, because that weekend's already gonna be nuts because of Memorial Weekend.
Oh,
Like,
I know.
There's gonna be so many drunk people. Like, wow.
Wow.
I don't know if the wrestling world's ready for a party weekend and a wrestling show in the same weekend.
Are you ready for it?
I don't know.
I don't know if you are either. I feel like Jamie's been planning this turn up for a while. He's been like so pumped about it.
I really have been saving up. Like, I may need those IV bags that they like with liquids.
Okay, let's talk about.
Just hook into my veins.
Let's briefly talk about the wild card rule. I talked about it on Raw, SmackDown recaps with Roka, but I want to hear what you guys thought about it. Either one of you want to...
About what?
The wild card rule.
Oh.
I mean,
at first, you're like, okay. It's with me. I knew that whenever they do a brand split, to me, it's always temporary. It's always going to be a few years of that, and then they always go back to putting it just everybody's on every show. So I didn't give it too much of a timetable. I didn't think it was going to be this soon that they would do it. I mean, there's only been how many Raw Super 2? Maybe one or two.
Oh, how many?
Superstar shakeups.
2 of them.
Yeah.
But the brand split happened, I think, in 2016, I want to say.
Okay, so I mean, it's still a solid amount of time. At first, the first explanation as to why they do it, I think people weren't so. I mean, people like to be bag on the show because they like to go to the ratings and say that they're failing, and then. I think the reason why the initial shock was there was it kind of feels like a cop out, like as to like explain why, and. You'll get your purists saying they don't really need a reason to explain it. The emphasis shouldn't be on the why. It's what they do with it.
Yeah.
Got a lot of people saying that. I mean, yeah, you're right.
I just feel like the last month of programming, it's like, what is even happening?
And I was critical of it too. Don't get me wrong. But then when I read why that nobody's confirmed it, but supposedly that the reasoning is that the new stations, Fox and so on and so forth, don't want exclusive superstars to one show. Like if they want who they want. Yeah, they want like Roman Reigns to be on Fox and USA. They want AJ Styles to be on Fox and USA. And when I read that, it makes sense. I get it.
Yeah, but here's the thing,
But
though.
I get it. It sucks as a fan. You kind of want them to. What wrestling fans want one thing, and it's not something that's always guaranteed to them, and it's follow through. They always want to finish. They want it, and they want at least at least a culmination. And sometimes we get it. Sometimes we don't.
It's not so much the culmination with me. It's the fact that I just don't like when I have a disconjointed storyline, or when it's like the things that we watched for a few weeks were just completely thrown away because of let's say that was the case. Then you could have waited 1 week to explain it in a thorough way at least. Like there's been no indication of like how it's going to be chosen that these people are the wild card
Also,
one, or even like. Who is approving it? It's supposed to be approved by someone.
Or like, hey, am I going to tune in next week and you're going to completely blow this off and pretend like it didn't happen? Because I feel like that's like even just when it went back to like when they were doing the shakeup, it was just like, what even happened the last month? Like there's part of me it's just like I couldn't tell you cohesively what the hell has happened since WrestleMania.
That's because it's been so confusing.
Yeah,
it's been just so all over the place. Like, ding, 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 like a fucking pinball machine.
I thought that was a slot machine, actually.
I mean,
ding, 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 ding.
Because you know what happened?
Better?
I mean,
it's more of a pachinko, but
okay.
There's two things that I think that WWE did that kind of shot themselves in the foot, and I think it all goes back to when they had the initial, we're getting rid of the GMs, we're getting put in the fan, because it's what politicians do, and it doesn't always work out for them. Is when they promise things and then it doesn't align. It sounds great on paper, but then when you try to apply it, you're like, okay, well, I can't do it exactly as I said I can.
You're the authority now. Well, how do we do that? I don't know. It just sounded good. You know, like
it's like they're not like, how are they going to implement that? Oh, we're going to read our at. Oh, you're going to read your ats. Really? That's going to be fun.
You're gonna let the fans book it? Yeah, that'll work. Yeah.
But just imagine somebody just having like, okay, events like going to their digital team is like, I need you to read all the comments. Like you just analyze it and figure out what they need.
I need a doc on my desk of all the replies about this thing. Okay, he comes to his desk, it's just like a stack of papers this high.
The guy wants to murder himself afterwards. So I feel depressed about life in general. But it's
one time when I was like a production assistant still, I forgot what show. It was like the first show I worked on, and the lady who was my boss at the time, she handed me like a full binder, with just so many papers in it. She handed it to me, and she was like, "I need a copy of this," and I was like, "All of this?" And she was like, "Yeah," and I was like, okay, and I went, and I didn't know that there was that thing in the copy machine where you can
set it there.
Just set it there.
Just did it one by one.
So I did it one by one, thinking that was my job, that was the task presented to me.
I mean,
I was there for an hour and a half at least, and I remember I finally went back, and she was like, "What took you so long with this?" I was like, "You told me to make a copy of this whole book. There's 200 pages in here," and it was like, "There's a And then she like got real mad and like took me over to the machine. Like, there's a thing right here. You put it. Why wouldn't you have just said something to me? I was like, I didn't know that was a thing.
Hey, also do it yourself.
But going back to
All you gotta do is set it there and press a button.
It's
idiot.
like, when you're a kid and you're running for student council position, like president, treasurer, you always say, "Oh, I'm gonna make it so there's pizza for lunch every day,"
Yeah.
and then you get elected. And then you may even bring it up at the first meeting, and then the teachers are like, "No, we're not going to give pizza."
Longer recess. It's
yeah,
like, no, there's a schedule here.
Yeah.
Idiot.
Were you ever class president?
Yeah, I was.
Did you run on that platform?
What did I?
I feel like you probably ran on that pizza platform. That's why you have such a vivid memory of bringing it up in your first meeting.
I was class president when I was in 4th grade. And
yeah, you strike me as a 4th grade class president.
And
Like, because he was too cool for it in high school, but like...
No, I ran once in high school, but I spaced on when the day of like the campaign speeches was.
So you didn't show up for the day of campaign
I didn't have a speech.
So you're just like, hey.
I just called it on the spot, and I was like,
you made
oh God, if anybody votes for me.
You probably made it through about 20 seconds of it, like with your head collected, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, what else do I say?
That's really what happened.
No, yeah.
Like, I was like, there's really nothing. I got nothing, really. And then,
just vote for me.
I knew it.
You should have stopped me like, well... I could get Limp Bizkit to do a concert here.
No, you should have been like, pizza for lunch.
No, I legitimately at the end thought, like, if anybody votes for me, I would be incredibly shocked. But
you're like George Michael Bluth.
Yeah, exactly. But then the second mistake that I think that they made is see, you got me on this.
Sorry. I wanted to know about you. I wanted to know about your run
in the chamber,
your office,
and that's why, because I thought I could bring it back by bringing us back on, but I can't.
Sorry. I wanted to hear about your history and politics. Today. I'm sorry. I'm in vacation mode. But with the wild card rule, I do think that it was a little bit of a. It seemed like something they pulled out of the hat at the last second.
It's a patch job. It's because they were hemorrhaging.
Yes.
There we go. All right, I got you back to it.
The presentation.
There we go.
The presentation was because if we're supposed to take it for what it is, it seemed like Vince just did it on the spot.
Yeah.
Because if that's what it is, because that's what they're portraying it,
yeah.
It's not maybe. He clearly says, I made it up. He says that. Yeah. I'm a genius.
I'm a genius.
So we're supposed to see like, okay, so you're just going to change shit on a whim. Like it's...
But again, it's just like, but when it comes to episodic television, you do need to be able to depend on a few things. There's some consistency from episode to episode. The episodic television programming that they've been putting out, outside of some of the in-ring product, has been garbage. It's not been of the quality that people expect, especially when people are so hyped leading up to WrestleMania. And and I don't know if it's a product of just like, I mean, this happens every year after WrestleMania.
I've said the same thing. That before this wild card rule thing, last week, I just thought it was like the normal post-WrestleMania hangover where it's like, people have been going to Punta Cana, they're tired from WrestleMania, everyone, the writing staff and creative team is overworked. Like, at this point, you're like, okay, we need a few weeks to mentally
the difficulty
check out.
of it as a television viewer, as a loyal fan, or whatever you want to call it, is just like, nothing crazy is going to happen right after WrestleMania. Everything just led up to it. So
I just think, how great would it be if things just stopped at WrestleMania?
Yeah.
Like, even if they left it on a cliffhanger. Imagine if when Seth Rollins cashed in at 32, imagine if WWE 31. Imagine if WWE programming just stopped for 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
That's too long.
I don't think so, dude. Because think about it. People do that with TV seasons. People wait years. People waited 2 years for the Game of Thrones new season, and they were hyped when it came back, and they were ready to see what happened.
Even a month, even just like, hey, let me.
Even a month.
I'd give
it a month.
I'm humming and I'm like huffing and puffing over here, but like, we had to wait a year to see Thanos get his,
and it was awesome. Like, you're telling me that you're like, I did not see Seth Rollins cashing in right now. I cannot wait to see what Brock Lesnar does, because I was hyped to see what I was there. I was on the team, and I was hyped to see what Brock Lesnar did the next day. Imagine compounding that.
No, that does make sense. No, definitely.
I mean, and not only like, hey, people are burnt out. Like, I mean, it's like
That's the real thing.
people are majorly burnt out. It's just like everybody was like gung ho about Becky and about so many other things, and everybody now is just like, hey, I'm tired of this. Like, I'm so tired of everything. And I guess that's also why it's like, yeah, that's why it's exciting that there is so much other wrestling going on. It's like there's so many damn hours of content on WWE. It's just like, hey, I can't do. I don't have this marathon in me to like continue.
I think
Ryan,
100%.
You commented on it when I was trying to talk. I was trying to talk about the GCW episodes that I was watching over the weekend. Is because I was like, from being at WrestleMania weekend, you were there too. You're like, okay. Got a lot of that. Like I want to go see some other things. And, I'm not comparing the GCW product to WWE product by any means. It's apples and oranges, night and day. But, I just, you do need a reprieve.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, that's why this trip to Mexico I'm pumped about. Because
Star Wars, in my opinion, one of the greatest things ever created. Even Disney is like, okay, maybe we're being a little hasty.
Pump the brakes a little bit. Even Marvel is not announcing tons and tons of new things that they're doing outside of the Disney Plus stuff because it's also, they don't understand. It's like, hey, like people have an emotional buildup to these major events that happen, to WrestleMania, let's say, and then all of a sudden it happens and people are just like, yeah, people are stoked to go into like the Raw the next day after WrestleMania, but then that next Monday happens and you're just like, all right, I'm out. I'm good.
Say what you will about the prequels, but the anticipation in between episode 1, 2, and 3, that was like, periods of your life.
Yeah,
go
for sure,
by.
for sure.
And like that was like, because there was 4 years in between each one.
3 years.
Or 3 years.
Yeah.
Still,
I joked about it today on Twitter. I said, like, if I ever have kids one day, I'm going to make them wait a year in between watching Infinity War and Endgame just so they can know the struggle we all went through. But I really was.
Glass cases above the TV.
It only unlocks when it hits a certain date. But it was because I was driving and I was thinking that I was listening to I've listened to a couple podcasts with the Russo brothers and another one with the Kevin Smith podcast with the writers of the movie. And I was driving and I was just thinking, like, man, there's never gonna be like that's such a unique thing that hasn't really happened like that. There's not many movies that end on that dark of a note that you have to wait a year for to see like the comeuppance on screen. Yeah, it happens in TV more often than movies. But I was like, when I was watching it, I was just thinking like, or I was listening to this, I was just thinking like, man, like there's never going to be anything like this. They're probably, I don't know, that's hard.
Because it was unexpected that it built up to the level that it did, that it continued the way that it did and everything.
I also didn't realize the guys who wrote it. Now we're talking Avengers stuff, but I didn't realize the guys who wrote it are the same people who wrote the first Avenger and Winter Soldier.
Yeah, I think this is the fifth. They've
written a bunch of them.
Yeah,
they wrote Endgame and they wrote Infinity War and they had a writing credit on Thor: The Dark World.
Yeah,
and which is why those movies were the ones they were like pumped to go back to and stuff. And
one of my favorite lines in Endgame is like when they go to see Red Skull and he goes, "Welcome, Clint, son of Edith."
It's all like, regular ass names.
Yeah. And last thing I'll say about Avengers Endgame before we get back to wrestling talk, because there's 2 more topics I want to bring up real fast, just short ones. In that interview I was listening to with the writers, was either the writers or the Russo brothers, one of them said that initially in the movie, instead of Captain America versus Captain America, it was a fat Thor versus in shape Thor that they had in the movie. And I was like, oh, that would have been so cool. That would have been awesome too. Honestly though, the Kevin Smith podcast with the writers, if you're like me and you want to hear just kind of, you like the making of movies and stuff like that, I can't recommend the Kevin Smith one enough with the writers, and the Russo brothers one they did, the Sad Happy something podcast, something like that. Okay, last 2 wrestling topics I want to get into before we head out of here, and that is one of them. I thought this was interesting because of that Dark Side of the Ring series. It was very timely to make this announcement happen, and that is that Kevin Von Erichs' sons Ross and Marshall have signed with MLW, Major League Wrestling.
If I didn't know any better, I would say it was a direct cause.
Court said he's been pursuing them since January.
Yes, and I get
And Court is a big Gary Hart guy who was WCCW guy, so that also makes sense.
If I didn't know any better, if you're a Calvin fan, you see that shit, you're like, what? That's pretty...
outside looking in. Yeah, totally. Though I haven't seen a ton of their work, but I do remember they've wrestled. I want to say it was for Impact, but I've seen them wrestle before, but that was also a long time ago at this point. I'm not sure exactly what their ages are, but I remember it was a while ago. And, I've always kind of been surprised that they aren't featured in more places in America, considering how much people like the Von Erichs.
I haven't really seen anything they've done other than slow motion karate in the woods. But
I will also offer, I don't think people are like, yeah, the Von Erich family in this day and age. I mean, they are people.
They are still kind of.
I think this documentary, like at least in the hardcore fan base, which accounts for I'd say at least 80% of the fan fan base of Dark Side of the Ring. I think that they'll appreciate it. Like everybody likes a good story. It would be really nice to see that the ending of the Von Erich story isn't like just depressing.
Death,
yeah, and
because that World Class Championship Wrestling documentary that WWE put out like 12 years ago, whatever, was pretty. If you want,
I'd say the Dark Side of the Ring. If you ever get a chance to watch that one, it's even more so.
See, you know what? I feel like it wasn't darker. As much as they did,
I think they go into more detail in that sense.
I think the reason I enjoyed the Von Erichs Dark Side of the Ring episode so much is because that WCCW documentary was dark.
Yeah.
And it was very fact-based, which this one was too, the Dark Side of the Ring one. I just felt like it was... The other one was like real... fuck, that's sad,
Well, it was also just like the dangers of drugs.
Yeah. This one was like, yes, that... But also, you got to feel they humanized it much more.
More. It wasn't so much like, oh well, they were just they were drug addicts.
Totally.
It was like these guys made bad choices. They
were
wanted to be
family.
Good.
They wanted to be good.
Yeah,
all that. I think that's why I enjoyed this one so much because it was clearly told from a wrestling fan, a longtime wrestling fan's perspective.
Absolutely, and that's a big thing that a lot of addicts have to deal with is that they get. Whenever they're going through, a lot of people don't want to go through recovery because then they get that they're not a person anymore.
Yeah,
I also don't remember.
They're a drug addict, and that's that stigma.
Yeah,
will stop you from anybody wanting to even admit it, let alone go get help.
I also don't remember that WCC, and I could be wrong because it's been so long because I've watched the documentary.
That came out like in 2009.
Yeah,
I think it was 2007.
Yeah, as evidenced by me not remembering who Gino Hernandez is, but or knowing his whole full story or whatever. But I don't recall that documentary covering the fake Von Erich brother. Was it?
I remember.
I remember that
hearing
story.
About him. I remember hearing about him.
Like, did they added
briefly.
A non-Von Erich? They renamed a guy Von Erich?
I think they gloss over.
Yeah, it's not
it
wasn't detailed, but I do remember it being in there.
Okay, and I was right. The Von Erichs, they wrestled in TNA in 2014, and that was 5 years ago. So I mean,
if
obviously
they've been at it for 5 years.
Exactly. So I'm actually kind of excited. I always think that, it's just a sad tale, the Von Erich family story, that I would love to see a positive one, I would love to see just...
Didn't you get into it with that Von Erich dude?
It was all via DM. But we're good. We're good now. Okay. We're good now.
Sorry.
No, and it was Kevin. But no, he's been through a lot. I let it slide. We're still good with each other.
Okay.
Here's the last one I want to talk about, and that is Rhyno turning down a new WWE contract offer. Apparently, his deal. He did an interview with Chris Van Vliet, and he said. He said, July 17th is my last date there. They actually offered me more than twice my downside, but it wasn't where they would have to use me because the downside is so large, and it wasn't about the money. It was about me wanting to be on the road, work, and helping the younger guys kind of like a player coach. It was a mutual understanding. It was a mutual understanding that we were not going to figure out a number, and they've been great. I can't say anything bad about them. I had a lot of fun. I was afraid they would say yes to a larger downside than what they offered me because I was afraid they would still sit me at home. It's not that they don't like me. There's a lot of talent there, and they have to cycle the talent, which is normal because you want to get men and women out there to work. I was afraid that I would become miserable, and that's the last thing that you want to do when you're doing something that you love. I would rather take a step back and work for some of these companies and work the independent scene.
Good for him.
You don't want to make it Rhyno angry.
No, definitely not.
Especially like modern day soup can Rhyno.
Yeah.
But I feel like he had to have saved a lot of money the past couple of years if he's willing to walk away from like double the money that he was making now.
But I think it's a testament to the fact that the dude wants to wrestle. Like these guys, I think, we've lived past the age where, people are like him are completely broken down at that stage of life and everything. He's like kind of that caliber of person who he had that TNA run, but during that period of time where like they weren't touring and like they were just doing like tape shows and stuff like that. And like, so, his body probably got relatively well preserved during that period of time, or less banged up than he would have had he been on a WWE contract that entire time.
I mean, his body's pretty healed up right now, though. I mean, just in 2019, he's only wrestled 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 matches.
Yeah,
in all of 2019.
Like, I mean, the dude wants to wrestle. Like, I mean, that's what he does. And
You mean televised matches?
No,
Like not even house shows?
no, yeah, just that is house shows. He hasn't been on television at all in 2019, except for WrestleMania and the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
I mean, good for him. Like, I mean, it obviously takes a lot of confidence in oneself to be able to turn down guaranteed money.
Especially when there's not as many openings for coaches.
Yeah.
There's many more openings for talent.
Yeah. And I would also say, like, that's probably, I feel like the people in the WWE, like, especially the vets that are there, probably have a lot of respect for him for wanting to, like, A, help, B, still be active and go at it and everything, too. Clearly, like, there's been other people like that. Billy Gunn's a perfect example of this, where it's like, that dude still has, like, a lot of gas in the tank and he has a lot left to give.
Do you think that he would be a good producer, like, or an agent?
Yes, but they think that they've already got plenty of those.
Well, I mean, they have ones that are leaving and they're going to have split it up. I'm kind of surprised they didn't offer that to him.
I don't know, because I don't know Rhyno. I don't know if he could tell a story.
That's one of the things I'm wondering, yeah.
I mean, he's never really been one that's
What's your favorite Rhyno match?
They all would have been in ECW.
Yeah. I mean, he was always used as like a muscle whenever he was in WWE. He was paired with people because he wasn't a mic guy.
Yeah.
And
I loved him in ECW though.
Yeah.
Man, I even told you, like, even when he debuted in WWE during the ladder match, like, I was like, Jesus, I forgot. Like, because you see, like you said, Soup Can Rhyno now. But then when back in the day, like when he was
Dude,
the
gore was one of the only spears that felt like it wasn't just a spear,
Like, it
felt
looked like
100%.
he killed people with that thing.
I would say the Gore is my favorite. Like the OG ECW, like Gore when he was like hungry young.
Well,
Rhyno.
it was a lot more like kind of like that Monty Brown, the pounce or whatever he did back in the early TNA days, where it was like it was less of a standard spear and it was more of a strike.
Yes, absolutely. But it's now that you mentioned that, like even those old school ECW Rhyno matches, and I could be wrong, it's been so long, and I'm not a historian, like I said, but like I don't recall like there being these long, dramatic Rhyno matches. But also at the same time, like he wouldn't be agenting long, dramatic matches like that either. He would be doing TV matches, which he does have lots of experience with.
Yeah, and I just, I mean, there's got to be a reason why. Like, if you really think about some of the agents that have gone through WWE, you're kind of like, what? Like ones you would never have expected, but then you see their body of work, and you're like, okay, like if you had told me that, like if you, I'm sure if you had told somebody that Road Dogg, would become an agent. I mean, then eventual
it's not
lead writer.
Road Dogg. I mean, yeah, great on the stick, but no. I mean, he's even said himself he's not the greatest in-ring competitor.
Well, I would have believed lead writer only because he was such a good talker. Kind of like I believe, like I was saying in our group chat today, where I believe that like if you had told me 10 years ago that Kevin Silva was doing curating an emo night at Slide Bar in Fullerton, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but when wasn't Road Dogg in match agent at one point?
I think he's always been a writer. I could be wrong. I could be.
I don't know, but there. I mean,
but you're right. I get your point.
Yeah, but there are some random ones that are just like, huh? But then, like Kidman, he came out of nowhere.
Totally. But Jamie Noble.
Yeah, and Joey Mercury.
Yeah,
and
Sanjay Dutt.
Yeah, and then they got to be there for a reason.
Yeah.
And I think that if they wanted him in that position, they would have taken him, because they seem to want people that are more fitted to it. Like, for instance, they clearly want Matt Hardy in that position.
Yeah,
they made a big thing of it. They even on their website said, "Look who's being a producer. It's Matt Hardy." I think that whenever they want somebody in that position, they'll put him in there.
Yeah, totally. All right, you know what? I got a vacation to get to, so I'm going to call it a wrap here. Jamie, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me at Twitter at JAMIE_IOVINE, or at Instagram at JAMIE_IOVINE. IOVINE, or our weekly daily drops, I would say, on the network. Exclusive products can't get anywhere else at NTWRK. When I say exclusive products can't get anywhere else, that's exclusive when they're on sale at the time, and that's not everything we put out. By and large, it's stuff you can't get anywhere else. And anyway, wow, that was the biggest asterisk ever.
I was just gonna say,
But by and large,
it was literally like Jamie. I was just gonna say that same thing. That it felt like you were reading the little fine print at the bottom.
Yeah, but we got to fill a lot of dates with products. So. But and also you can find us at Coastline Clash, which is happening at the Irvine Amphitheater this Monday,
May 13th.
And the 13th, it'll be a fun show. David Arquette versus Peter Avalon, Royce Isaacs versus Tyler Bateman. You're gonna have Joey Ryan's going to be there, MJF, Willie Mack. It's going to be a pretty
Big
fun
show.
card. Yeah, it's going to be La Parka or La Parka. Who he is now. Yeah, it's
Still
gonna be
the
a lot of fun
same.
people
Still
on
the
there.
same park to me.
Yeah, the park.
Well said, Eli. Where can people find you on the internet?
Twitter,
It's so serious right there.
Turns to the camera.
Twitter at Elijah Bates. Instagram at Brindlebeard. Ryan.
You can find me at Ryan Satin on social media. It's ProWrestlingSheet.com. That's where you can find all the top stories throughout the week, but not next week because I'm going to be on vacation starting tomorrow. But when I get back, go check out the website. It's at Wrestling Sheet, social media, ProWrestlingSheet.com. If you're watching us on YouTube, youtube.com/C/Wrestling Sheet. If you're there, make sure you like the page, or make sure you subscribe, make sure you like the video, make sure you share if you like it. Comment, I read it. Please do it. I appreciate it. And if you want to listen to the audio only, whether you're driving or working out, cooking, whatever you do while listening to podcasts, make sure you subscribe to our feed there as well on all the major podcast platforms. Just search Wrestling Sheet Radio. Okay, that's it. I'm done. We're done. Officially tapping out for now. Until next time, stay out of the dirt. Keep your eye on the sheet.